Fantastic Four. Now, this movie I wanted to watch for quite a while. I didn't want to see it in the movies, which is why I didn't, and this is why this review is super late. But I recently saw it for free on demand, and I was like, I want to check it out. And really, the only drive I ever had to check this movie out was really because I hated Batman v Superman so much because it's such a crappy movie. It was so boring and stuff, and I think the movies are fairly similar with how they both got really crappy reviews, but no one really ever cared about Fantastic Four, so not like a billion people went to see it, regardless of reviews. Compared to it's Batman and Superman on the big screen fighting for the first time. So I went into this movie like, all right, I know it got really crappy reviews. I was kind of turned off from seeing it because the reviews were so crappy, and it was probably the same thing because I don't know. I feel like there were more reviews as well. Like I feel like the crappy reviews were out way longer for Fantastic Four compared to Batman v Superman. But before I actually ended up getting to see it, I felt like it just was a lot longer. So I heard it so much more that I just didn't end up getting to see it. But I finally watched it, and honestly, I think it's almost exactly the same as Batman v Superman. Like if I had to choose which one I'd see more, I would definitely choose Fantastic Four, and it's mostly because of length. Batman v Superman is like 2.5 hours. This movie is like an hour and 40 minutes, like a little bit less than that. So as I was watching it, I was going through. I was like, okay, there are jokes in here. We have stories going off. It's like it starts off when it's like Ben and Reed when they're really young, and then it's like, oh, this is how they became friends. Reed is like the scientist, and he's super smart even as a little kid. Both of them have crappy home lives, which doesn't seem to really matter. It's like it sucks, and then they skip 8 years or a billion years, whatever. They're teenagers, and then they go through the movie, and basically the whole movie, up until maybe the last half hour, is basically just like a bait and switch type of thing. Because you go through, it's like, all right, so I'm laughing a little bit here. Here's a joke. Here's something serious. Here's something big. Like here's a big moment, but then nothing happens. It's like you find something in the movie where it's like that's pretty cool, and it's a cool little moment, but it should lead to a really cool big moment, and that's what you kind of keep thinking. It's like, all right, this little thing happened, and then you find yourself an hour into the movie and you saw your first fight scene, which was like under a minute long. I'm pretty sure that was like a minute, under a minute long for the first fight scene. That was like, I checked the timer and it was an hour and 6 minutes was the first actual fight, and that's maybe like hour 4 minutes because I saw it on demand. So they always have this little promos like watch all this other crap we have. And the crazy thing about this movie is like they should have made this a TV show. Of course, it wouldn't have had the insane budget, so it wouldn't have looked as good with the special effects and all that. But it probably could have been better. I mean, honestly, this entire movie, if it was made into a TV show, if it was like part one and part two of a series premiere, it wouldn't be that bad. It would still be like the first part was really talky, and then the second part was like the action, and then they fight the main villain. Sure, but as a TV show, that works because you have so much more to say. And then this, with it being a movie, especially with it being a movie that didn't make any money, so of course it's not going to continue with the sequel. Well, it might. It might not have a sequel, but they might bring those characters into some of the other movies because technically, Fantastic Four is within the same universe as the X-Men and Deadpool movies because it's owned by Fox. So they might get the actors back later if they want to do their own, Marvel cinematic universe, which they've kind of done, because of Deadpool. So if they really want to do that, maybe they could bring the characters in, and that would be fine as long as it wasn't their own movie, or if they didn't change it, I guess, because even the writer was like, basically they changed the whole movie, so the cool version, you guys never got to see. But going through the whole thing, it was just a lot of talking. It was like, all right, I'm laughing a little bit, and that was one thing where it's like that in itself kind of beat out Batman v Superman for me, and it's just like, man, there's so much talking in this, but at least in Fantastic Four, you laugh a little bit. There are actually jokes and stuff like that. Like, it's serious, but it's not just 100% serious. And, that was kind of the one thing that really kept me entertained through the movie is that there would be jokes every once in a while that I'd laugh. That, I'd actually laugh at the jokes, but it was still like, all right, well, these are still just little jokes inside of a superhero movie. and nothing really superhero-y is happening. And they skip a ton of time too, because they have the first time skip where they start off as kids, so of course it skips them when they're teens, and then or early 20s or whatever they're supposed to be, and then they get their powers, and they do another time skip, and it's like all they've done is just stand around and practice with their powers for like a year, and they still didn't really get that great with it until like the end fight scene. I'm like, they were doing stuff for like a full year, and they still didn't have like complete control over their powers until like the last final battle of the movie. And I kind of like that idea. One aspect where it's like, oh, they can't really control their powers. Their suits kind of help them control their powers, at least for 3 out of the 4 members. And like for Reed, he can't really control his body, so he has a suit that basically brings his body back to him. Because if it was broken, he would basically like fall apart, and he'd just be like a droopy mess on the ground. And they kind of exploit that at the end of the movie when they have like the big fight scene. And it's like, man, he had a full year to at least practice this, and he chose to do nothing with it. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, I could get it if the whole movie took place when they first got their powers, but they skip a lot of time. I don't want to. I mean, it doesn't matter if I specify, but they do a big time skip, and they're still just kind of training the whole time. And that's another thing with the movie. There's like no world in this movie. It's like, seriously, it's just like army and scientists the entire film. And that's pretty much it. Most of the world that you see is in the first part of the movie when it's Reed and Ben as kids. And then they grow up, they do like the little thing that kind of gets Reed into um, the Baxter building and all that stuff. And that's really it. Outside of that, like once that happens, there's one other scene where he's in like the normal world, and that's it. Everything else is either someone's off by themselves doing something sciencey, or they're in the big facility that they've been in the entire film, and it's some science stuff. Like they do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Um, I guess there's one extra scene when they kind of introduce Johnny. He has like another like thing where he's actually outside of just the whole science component of the film, but there's like nothing. There's no world. It's just them doing science stuff, and it's like, all right, well, we did this. We got powers. Skip time, practicing on powers like we have been for this whole time, and that's really it. It's like Ben as the Thing. They kind of send him out on like military missions to try to help him and stuff like that. So that's what they should have showed, because there's one clip where he's like fighting a bunch of people and it's like, look at this. It's like at the bottom it's like confirmed kills says like 48. I'm like, that's what this movie should have been about. That would have been pretty cool, or at least something, because that could have at least been an action scene where we got maybe a montage. They just show like the little bit of footage where it's like, oh, this is him doing work for the military, and that's it. Like that's really all there is to it. And it just kind of sucks, And even though I assume no one's gonna see this, I'm still gonna split this up. That's why I'm not giving out all the information. I'm still gonna do this as a spoiler-free review, and then go into all the other details. Just I don't. If you want to, see it, like, and it's kind of funny. I wouldn't say you'd be torturing yourself to see it, but it's not like the greatest film ever for sure. But I feel like you'd be torturing yourself if you went to see Batman v Superman, and so that's kind of the thing for me personally. Like the one thing Batman v Superman certainly has over this is the action. At least at the end, they actually have some good action sequences. And in this, is like, the final fight is kind of so-so, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's one like my favorite scene is Doom, when he's being like a full-on villain, and it's in the trailers. Basically, him walking down the hall and it follows him as he's basically trying to escape. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie, because he was actually like killing people. That was like the coolest scene in the whole movie to me, and plus it made me think of the anime movie Akira, where it's like people are just like dying all over the place, and he's just walking through, and they gave him different powers than they did from the old one. So in that, he had lightning powers in the old Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four 2, and in this he just has like mental abilities, and that's pretty much it. So either way, they gave him powers that are different than what he has. Like, I don't think he has any powers whatsoever in the comics, if I remember right. It's all really just technology. But it's still cool. Like, that was definitely my favorite part. And then the end fight scene was kind of okay. I mean, at least we got to see the powers. So that was nice because everything else was like, oh, there's Johnny flying, or there's Sue being invisible, or something. Like, it was the simplest stuff. Like, it was just look at them walking around with their powers. That was pretty much it. They weren't really using them. Like, Johnny probably used his powers the most throughout the entire movie, and technically Ben, because of course he's the thing, so he's always like that. But that was it. Like, you basically just saw them training the entire time, and that was pretty much it. It was kind of, like, it kind of kept you going because it's like, okay, here's a little joke here. I'm not like full on bored or anything like that, but there's really nothing happening. It's like a ton of talking, and you go through and it's like, like I said, when I got to the very first fight scene, I was like, this has to be like an hour into the movie, and it was. And it was like an hour into the movie. All they done was talk and train, and that was it. And then we had like a minute long fight scene, and then the actual end of the movie was probably a 5 minute fight scene. So it's still, there was basically no action in the movie. It was like the dialogue is really, that's it. That's the only thing that keeps you going. Is like there's some jokes that are actually funny here and there, but everything else, like, it was really like a slice of life type movie. It's just, this is kind of what's happening. These are people with superpowers training to get their superpowers. They show you, actually, this is a perfect example. All the stupid stuff that people normally skip where it's like, oh crap, I found this. It'll take me like a year to figure it out, or it'll take me like 8 months to do this, and it's actually entertaining. They basically show you the 8 months, pretty much, is kind of how it goes. Even though they don't, after they do the time skip, still nothing happening. So it's like, you start off with them figuring out they've got powers and stuff, and freaking out, like, how do we do this? They do the time skip, and it's still the boring stuff of them just training and trying to get their powers better. And it's like, how is this happening after such a long time? And it's superpowers, so, they can make it where that makes sense. They wouldn't have complete control. But after such a long time, and especially with, how you see it in the movie, that's all they do is train to perfect their powers. And then they're just still training. Like, Johnny's like, I can go faster with my fire. I don't know what Sue was doing. I mean, I guess her powers were, she was trying to float. That was like her thing. It's like, because she can float if she gets her abilities right. That was pretty much it. That was her. Ben just wanted to turn human again, and Reed was trying to cure Ben. That was like the whole movie. And then they fight Doctor Doom at the end, and that's it. That's the whole movie. But that's pretty much it. I'm gonna do a spoiler video on this. Like I said, even though it's probably completely pointless, but I wanted to do this just to, if you, for whatever reason, wanted to see it, if you had that curiosity like me, if you haven't seen it and you have seen Batman v Superman and you want to kind of watch it like I did, and like I said, that's the only reason I saw it, because it got such terrible reviews. I was like, I have to see how much I hate this compared to Batman v Superman, because I've never disliked a superhero movie so much, until it came to Batman v Superman. But I'd still say I'd see this. It's solely based on time. If Batman v Superman cut an hour out of that movie and trim some stuff up, I would definitely prefer to see that, because at least, even with the drama and stuff, I'd at least get to see some good action, because that has a lot of actual fighting in it. It's still just a boring movie. It takes like they're almost exactly the same movie. Batman v Superman is just longer. It takes like an hour to get to the first fight scene, but with Batman v Superman, you still have an hour and a half left in the movie, as where with Fantastic Four, you have like 30 minutes left in the movie. So that's really the only reason. And so they suffer from the same thing where there's just too much introduction and not enough aftermath, really. And it's like, it's this origin story of characters who we've technically seen, and they could redo it with Fantastic Four. It's not like Spider-Man, who's had it, 2 times already. So I understand them redoing that, but if they're going to do a time skip, why wouldn't they just skip to when they're, I don't know, have two villains. Maybe have Doctor Doom come in later, have like a secondary Fantastic Four villain where they have to fight them and beat them, and then they find out, hey, we have to deal with Doctor Doom as well. And that could be 5 minutes, and it would be fine, because then it's like, oh, they beat him, but he might come back as the main villain for the second movie. Maybe something like that. Anything, really. Some form of action would have been good, because it's a superhero movie, and they use their powers for like a solid 15 minutes, in an entertaining way, at least. Like, probably 15 minutes total. So, maybe I'll give them 20. we'll go 20. It was entertaining, but it's just like, it's worth seeing for free. For sure, it's free, so why not? But it was something. Going into it, like I said, I figured I wouldn't enjoy it as much. I didn't. It was fine. To be totally honest. And it started, like I said, like my sole reason for seeing this was the Batman v Superman comparison, so that's why I'm mentioning Batman v Superman so much. But at least this one you could kind of get through, and you won't be bored like the first full hour. For me, I mean, obviously there are some people that like loved Batman v Superman. I personally thought it was insanely boring because it was, and this movie does that, but it at least has some jokes in there that make you laugh. So it's like it's not 100% drama. It is a little bit happier, and there are jokes that you can laugh at and stuff like that. There's a bit of drama in there as well, but it's a nice blend of it. But then it's like, that's nice. Sure, it's a nice blend of comedy and drama, but then it's also a superhero movie. You kind of need to have a blend of action on top of that and something that's actually entertaining with the superheroes. It can't just be comedy. Like, the only person that could really do that probably would be Deadpool, which they've done, and even that had a buttload of action in it because it's a perfect blend of action and comedy. And this is just comedy and drama, and it's like, oh yeah, we need a fight scene because it's a superhero movie. And so they threw a minute-long one in there after an hour, and then they threw in the 15-minute-long one in at the very end of the movie. So, I'd say sure, check it out. I wouldn't really recommend it, but if you're curious, like I was, then you won't really hate it. If you hated Batman v Superman, I don't see how you could hate this more, especially with it being shorter. I mean, and the comedy in it. That's really it. That's the only reason it's better. It's shorter, and it'll make you laugh outside of one scene in the entire all of Batman v Superman, where there's like literally one joke. So I can't really recommend it, but if you're curious, it won't bore you for a full hour. I mean, you just keep thinking something cool is gonna happen, and it's weird. That was like the weird thing about it. It's just a bait and switch. The whole movie was like a bait and switch. Seriously, it's just like, all right, that happened, so this has something cool is happening next, and it's like, okay, well, that was kind of cool. That was pretty cool. Something bigger is gonna happen next, and then it's another kind of cool thing over and over. But seriously, should have been a TV show. Would have made a great TV show because the way it ended, it was like, yeah, this could have been part one, part two of a series premiere. Would have been perfect. Like I said, little talky in the beginning. Part one, the talky part two, the action part. Part one and part two of a series premiere. Perfect. It would be a great TV show. Instead, it's a crappy movie. And that's just all there is to it. But I would love to know what you guys thought about it. Like I said, I'm going to do a spoiler discussion on it. Just kind of like really getting into some of the crappier details of the movie. But I would like to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below and let me know. And thanks for watching.